So today we have three RTX 3070s, and first and foremost, apologies if they're out of stock, and no, you can't have mine. Let's do this.
Are you finding yourself building and repairing PCs all the time?
Yes!
Are you always misplacing your Swiss Army knife that hopefully has a Phillips head screwdriver on it?
All of the time!
Well, you're in luck. The eTeknix PC Maintenance Toolkit is here, and it has everything you need to build and repair PCs. It even has an Allen wrench for custom loop fittings. Yes, it actually does have a use. Head over to the eTeknix store to find out more in the link in the description below. Tweezers are sold separately.
So as you all know, the Founders Edition card of the RTX 3070 from Nvidia launched 2 days ago at the time of publishing this video. Well, today marks the day for all of the custom cards to come out, and as you can see, we've got 3 of them. So here we have the MSI Gaming X Trio, the Zotac Twin Edge OC, and the Gigabyte Gaming OC. So before I actually talk about the cards themselves and really get down into that nitty gritty of each individual card and its specs, I'm pretty much going to let the benchmarks talk for themselves. So let's run them glorious benchmarks. So as we can see, the cards have pretty much performed exactly as expected. Lower than the 3080 and 90 series and higher than the 20 series. And guess what? They're cheaper too. So let's take a look at each one in a little bit more depth. So for reference, the Founders boost clock is 1725 MHz as we know, and comes in at £469 or $499 US. Taking the MSI Gaming X Trio, they've once again gone for the same design with the fans that we have seen with the 3080 and the 3090, and it comes with a boost clock speed of 1830 MHz. And the results clearly show that this was the better performing card of the three tested here today. Also being 7 degrees cooler than the other two cards at load, and also being quieter as well. If this hasn't already sold out as soon as it's been released, you will be able to find them at around £539 in the UK, so a slight premium over the Founders, as we'd expect with a Gaming X Trio card. If you're on the other side of the pond, you're probably going to be looking at about the same increase over the Founders card, so from £499 probably up to about, let's say, £589 plus taxes and shipping. Now going to Gigabyte's Gaming OC with its triple fan cooler and sleek design, with a quite small amount of RGB on top of the card, which can be turned off if that's not for you. Boost clock on this one is up to 1815 MHz, so not quite as high as the MSI card, but still a nice jump over the Founders. It's priced at the same as the MSI at £539 though. Now looking at the benchmarks, we can see that it performed very well against the MSI most of the time, only really being 1 or 2 frames per second behind or in front of the Gaming X Trio, even though the boost clock is slightly lower, albeit not really by much. And last but not least, we have Zotac's Twin Edge OC, a much smaller card than the others, but still keeping up with the rest. The card is very impressive, with cooling for something with only 2 fans on it. Being nearly half the size of the Gaming X Trio, this isn't really going to fill up your case or look overkill where it comes to RGB and of course length. This is more of a card that will fit into a smaller chassis, and as it is smaller you have less chance with any sagging when it's horizontally mounted. Now one weird part about the Zotac card is actually where the power connectors go. It's kind of recessed into the back of it, and I'm not a massive fan of that because when you try and hold a 6+2 pin together and try and somehow kind of get it in there, it's just a terrible design, I've got to be honest with you. Now the other thing, as we saw in the benchmarks, it was not quite as good as the other two cards. However, this was expected with a lower boost clock of 1755, so still a little bit over reference. But it is still a very good card, and based on our own investigations, the non-OC comes in at $529.99, so this should, and I say should, in theory be the same price as the Gigabyte and the MSI at $539.99. Stop the press, hold the phone, I've just been told the pricing of the Zotac card. And it's actually better than we expected, £508.99, including VAT. Now, pricing is still a little bit of a sore subject when you look at retailers kind of doing a little bit of profiteering because of the whole supply and demand thing, and of course scalpers like we saw with the 3080 and the 3090 series. Hopefully Nvidia have actually done something about it with the 3070, but at the time of filming, well, it's anyone's guess. Now, unlike their bigger brothers, these all have GDDR6 memory instead of GDDR6X, all sitting with 8GB of VRAM, whereas a 2080 Ti, for instance, has 11GB of GDDR6. And this actually showed when you look at the results, especially when you're looking at higher resolutions like 4K. Now, sticking with the 2080 Ti, when you compare against it, it really is a mixed bag, with the 2080 Ti actually performing better in most games, especially when it comes to higher resolutions. This is kind of expected though, with a higher amount of VRAM, as that's where 4K gaming really does come into its own. The other thing that you have to factor in is the cost factor. The 2080 Ti is still selling and is coming in some cases over double the price of these factory overclocked 3070 cards. So if you have a 2080 Ti, stick with it. If you do kind of fall into that category, I honestly don't believe that the 3070 is going to be the card for you. However, if you are on the 10 series and have something like a 1080 Ti, well, that's a completely different story. I mean, to put it into perspective, at the time of filming, they are still selling on eBay between £330 and £400. This is the same in America, between about $350 and $420. Now, this obviously depends on the brand and the model, so if you're quick, you could still have a relatively cheap upgrade of around £70 to £150, depending on the model that you're looking at. You're also going to enjoy things like ray tracing, DLSS, and much more that you get from Ampere as a whole. And honestly, it seems like a no-brainer. The only kind of real issue I can foresee here is when these actually launch and are available, which is going to be now because this is now published, the 10 series, consequently, even used prices are going to drop down in price. Consumers are going to sort of go, oh, something new on the market. I can spend that little bit more and get this. So it's kind of one of them weird ones of try and sell your card before watching this video, but then you can't because I can't publish this video. You get what I mean, right? Obviously, with talk of even lower end cards coming out, it does seem there really is going to be something for everyone from Nvidia for pretty much every budget. But again, you're going to have to wait for it. And if the 3080 and 3090 series are anything to go by, well, having them released, that's one thing. It doesn't exactly mean that you can get one. Hopefully the 3070 series, are a little bit different, and Nvidia have kind of learnt from the 3080 and 3090 series. But in all honesty, I'm not holding my breath. At my guess, 2021 is going to be the earliest that you're going to see these cards available in any large quantity. But of course, I'm speculating, and that really is anyone's guess at the moment. I mean, hopefully I'm wrong, right? Either way, let me know what you think of these cards. Which one is kind of the right one for you? Would you like to go for a triple fan, kind of keeping it nice and cool, nice and quiet, like the Gaming X Trio? Or do you like that kind of happy medium where you get the performance, you get okay cooling, but you get a solid brand behind it like Gigabyte? Not to say that MSI aren't a solid brand. Or would you prefer something on the smaller scale? Maybe you're going for a mini RTX build and the Zotac really is going to be the one for you. I'm really intrigued as to what you guys think. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know exactly what to do, and I will see you in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.